how to beat your stress, an academic perspective. In fact, as part of your the participant kit, we have given a book called "You Can Beat Your Stress," and it was authored by Dr. Debashish-1, a small, nice, handy book which you can complete in about one hour over your flight. It's a very sort of well-written book. Before Dr. Sengupta commences his session, a very quick profile. Dr. Debashish-1 is a professor and chairperson of Organizational Leadership and Strategy at the School of Business, Alliance University, Bangalore, a PhD, and specializes in talent management, strategic HR, training and development. He's had more than a decade of academic and corporate experience, has authored 3 books. One of them is with you. His second book is Employee Engagement, which is about to come out, which he has co-authored with a senior functionary in Titan. And the third is on floriculture marketing in India. He is an avid researcher and has written about 53 research articles so far, and he occasionally writes column for in leading journals and more specifically in the business line. And he's also presented several papers in national and international seminars and conferences. And he is a resource person in several management development programs, corporate training programs all over the country. Recently conducted a MDP on talent management across business cycles, sustained competitive advantage. And he's been invited by several corporates and several organizations for conducting training programs related to stress management. And he's been a trainer for organizations such as State Bank of India, the Indian Army, Institute of Chartered Accountants, Indian Veterinary Research Institution, and Bank of Baroda. With this, I now hand over the floor to Dr. Sengupta. Thank you.
Good morning to all of you. It's an opportunity for me to come and share some of my thoughts with distinguished participants. And please feel free to interact or to ask any questions in between wherever you feel the need to do so. I'll start with what this session sets out for. These are the 4 objectives of the session. The first is appreciate the changing workplace and changing workforce and trace the modern roots of stress. The second is to identify the stress stages and the breakaway points. The third is practice the ABC strategy of beating stress by influencing the cognition process. And finally is stress meter. This is how much is too much in terms of stress. All stress is not bad. There is some stress which is good as well. And if there was no stress, there would be no activity and there would be no achievement in this world. So I start with a slide which talks about beat distress and meet eustress. The idea is about not completely eliminating stress. The idea is to beat distress and meeting eustress. The eustress is the positive stress. Distress is the negative stress. Now, before I start off quickly, there are certain things which I feel about stress. There is one aspect which is known as the parable of boiled frog. The parable of boiled frog is, if you place the frog in a boiling water, it will immediately jump out. Who will not jump out? If we are put in boiling water, we will also jump out. But what is strange about that frog is, if you put that frog in a cold water, and then slowly warm that water, the frog doesn't do anything. Even when the water reaches boiling point, the frog doesn't come out. And the frog dies in that water. You know why? Because frog cannot detect small changes in temperature. It cannot detect. And hence, it dies in that boiling water, it doesn't jump out. Stress is also like that. It is a silent killer. It is very difficult to detect stress. This is the most typical thing about stress. It is very difficult. And we don't know that we are stressed, or we don't know to how much extent we are stressed. Number 1. Number 2, the idea of stress-free or distress-free is ideal and not possible. There would be some degree of stress always, even negative stress would always be there. So what is the objective of this session then? The objective of this session is to keep it under manageable limits. Keep it under manageable limits. And probably explore how can we try to keep it under manageable limits. It is not to eliminate it. It is just not possible to eliminate it. So let us not try which is not possible. it itself will cause the stress because we will try to eliminate but will not be able to eliminate. And number 3, managing this stress is not a one-time process. It is a continuous process. It will never end. To think that today I manage my stress and so I'm stress-free or stress has come down and then I don't need to do anything is something which will probably not work. So how do we know that we are stressed? I'll take you through a quick video just which talks about some of the aspects to identify that really we are stressed. And then as the session moves on, we'll go towards the other objectives of the session. And wherever you feel that you have something to share or you have some questions to ask, please feel free, as I said.
In this morning's Health Watch, feeling stressed out. A recent survey found that nearly 30% of workers called in sick in the past year when they actually were not. The increase in bogus sick days may be linked to burnout and stress caused by the weak economy. Early Show contributor Dr. Jennifer Hartstein, a psychologist, is here to help us handle the pressure, whether you're looking for a job or
currently in one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm afraid you're going to lose yours. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what are the signs that your stress levels are going out of control?
Well, we want to start with simple things. There's going to be a mood change. You might start to feel more irritable, more anxious, more depressed, and you want to take note of that. You want to start to notice, are you feeling more tense in your muscles? Are you feeling it in your body? Are you getting headaches? Are you clenching your teeth? Those are things to take notice of. How about sleep problems? When you start to really have a hard time sleeping when that's never been a problem before.
Right.
Leading into a sense of apathy. You start to just not care. You don't care about your job. You don't care about anything. And it could really end into that bigger problem of using drugs and alcohol excessively, potentially leading to a violent episode either at home with your kids or at the job. So it kind of is on a thermometer, exactly.
You look at that graphic. You're in the red zone.
You're in the red zone.
You have all that stuff going on. You're in the red zone. So how do you avoid? How do you keep from all of those things really starting to affect your life?
It's really hard, and you want to start to notice them early. If you notice that your mood's a little off, if you notice that you're getting stressed in your body, you want to reach out for help. You want to start to talk to people. You want to check in. You want to do things that will be relaxing to you and that you enjoy to help balance out. The more positive stuff you can do, it does balance out the negative, even though it's really hard to put that into your schedule.
I think that's a harder order. I think it's easier said than done.
It's always easier said than done. That doesn't make it any less important. It makes it even more of a priority to make happen.
So what are the biggest mistakes then that people who are in that total stress level that we put in the graphics there at the beginning of the segment? What are the biggest mistakes, folks who are totally stressed out? What are the biggest mistakes?
Some of the things they do is that they really totally dwell on only focusing on their job or their lack of job. They get really stuck in that little bit of focus and they don't see anything outside of that.
Right.
They don't check in with themselves or with their partner or with their friends on how they're doing, how they're feeling. They don't kind of have open communication. And lastly, as we were just mentioning, they avoid kind of non-job activities. They feel like they don't have the time to do anything that's enjoyable or
may
fun.
Be the best thing for them.
When in fact
so in the final analysis, what's the best thing you can do to alleviate the stress?
Find things that bring you some enjoyment and relaxation to balance out the stress.
All right. Small as it is.
As small as it is, it's so important.
Dr. Jennifer Hartstein, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
These may be some signs of stress setting in terms of mood change, irritability, not able to sleep properly, apathy, not able to relate, not able to do non-job activities. Now, as I said, all stress is not negative. Eustress or the positive stress is actually the enabler. If you look at the handout that I have given, I have dealt with three types of stress. One is the astress, that is the absence of stress. That is actually a disabler or an inhibitor. Whereas the eustress, the positive stress, is actually an enabler. It leads to productivity, innovation, and order. Can you think of some examples where eustress might have helped you or helped anybody in terms of achieving greater productivity, innovation, or creating a better order? Can you think of some examples? Pardon? Yes, it can be. I'll give you some examples. One of the examples is from a very innovative company known as Google. When 9/11 happened, it shook the world. And one of the executives at Google, his name was Krishnan. He was given the job of collating all possible news that appear on different websites related to 9/11. So what he had to do basically every day was, he had to go to different websites, he had to collect those news items and then put them together. Now that was a painful process. So what he did was, he designed a web crawler based on artificial intelligence. That program in itself would go automatically to different websites, search content related to 9/11 and collate them. This is a result of eustress. Now how that continued further. Krishnan then shared this with other Google executives. And the top executives of Google thought that this must not remain as a tool for Krishnan only. And they developed this further, and that is how Google News came into being. This is how Google News was created. I'll give you another example. And this is an example from personal life which went on to create one of the path-breaking products which changed the fortune of a company. You have all heard about a company known as Johnson & Johnson. And you must also have heard about a product known as Band-Aid. This Band-Aid it became a revolutionary product which became one of the best-selling products of Johnson & Johnson worldwide. But see how it took birth. And it was a result of eustress. There was one employee of Johnson & Johnson whose name was Dickinson. Now Dickinson's wife was a perennial herder. Which means, I'm not using the right grammar here, but what I was trying to say was that she would get hurt at the drop of a coin, at a drop of a hat. And she would cut herself, whether peeling potatoes or something, she would get hurt. And poor Dickinson, he had to rush with all the first aid and do the first aid. So what it did, because he had to do it so often, what it did was, he cut small pieces of cotton and small pieces of leucoplast and stuck those pieces of cotton on those leucoplast. And every time his wife would get hurt, he would only dab it with antiseptic liquid and put it. So it will be very quick. This he went and slowly shared with other colleagues in Johnson & Johnson. This led slowly to the development of a product, Band-Aid, which everybody uses. And I'm sure everybody in this room would have used Band-Aid. Similarly, another example of one person known as Richard Drew. I don't know how many of you must have heard about a company called 3M. 3M is one of the most innovative companies. Actually, if you look at their punchline is grow and divide. 3M produces some 60,000 products worldwide. 3M used to produce one product known as sandpaper, and the paint factories, the automobile paint, where they used to put the sandpaper on the surface to rub, clean, and any extra paint that would fall elsewhere. And the problem with that sandpaper was, William McKnight was the CEO of 3M at that time. The problem with the sandpaper was that when he used to rub, some parts of that sand would actually stick on that surface. So later on, when they would paint, those places will appear slightly more glazed or something. In other words, the glue which was used to stick those pieces of sand on that sandpaper was weak. So that sand would come out. William McKnight hired one scientist whose name was Richard Drew. And Richard Drew was given a task to develop a strong glue. He said, your task is to develop a strong glue. And that strong glue should be able to stick the sand so hard on the sandpaper that when the rubbing happens, the sand doesn't come off. He tried for some time, Richard Drew. It didn't work out. And then he came across one glue which was a very weak glue. And he started working on that. And he then mentioned this to William McKnight. William McKnight said, your job is not to search for a weak glue. I asked you to search for a strong